welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro coming live at you on a Thursday. By the way, coming up in hour number 3, actor Tom Arnold will be joining us. Very funny guy. And then at the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by TMZ Sports' very own Mike Babcock. So plenty to get to in the next, 2 hours or so. But the guy we have with us on the line right now, he's been obviously a great friend of the show. Love having him on. One of the most popular faces in poker, arguably the most popular in the last couple decades. 6-time World Series of Poker champion Daniel Negreanu. Daniel, always appreciate it when you take some time, my man. How you doing?
Well, always great to be on, especially when you guys force me to set my alarm to do these early 10 a.m. calls.
By the way, Daniel, speaking of which, we've had Phil Hellmuth on the show before. The guy won't come on before noon. He won't wake up anymore to come on our show. What is it with some of these poker players? I understand you guys play games late and stuff, but Phil will not wake up at 11:30 a.m. to do our show. What's up with that?
Well, Phil Hellmuth, from what I remember, most people, the goal is to sleep between 7 and 8 hours. I believe he's at around 15. So he really does, sleep like nobody's business. And, as you said, a lot of poker players are kind of night owls. Early mornings are just off limits.
Well,
maybe that's why he's 6'7".
That's possible. Well, Daniel, I appreciate you setting your alarm for our show. It means a lot. First question, and then we'll get to the political stuff. Talk a little bit about the World Series of Poker. Obviously, it doesn't happen very often where the World Series of Poker is supposed to start at the end of May. They just made the official announcement, even though I'm sure you knew this was going to happen way before we all did. The World Series of Poker now officially being postponed. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, this is one of those cases, right, where it wasn't a case of if. It was just like, well, when? When are they going to make the announcement, right? Because as we see what's going on in the world, there wasn't a lot of hope for, by the end of May, all of a sudden everything's back to normal and we're good to go to play poker, which, it's impossible to, make the poker environment, germ safe. So it was only a matter of time, and, they haven't released any dates in terms of, when they're postponing to, which I think is logical and makes sense, because really, what's the point, At this point, it's all up to the virus. We don't know when we can, resume normal life again. So there's no point in saying, well, we're going to do it in October. Oh, are you? I mean, I don't know. You can't plan for this at this moment.
So if Carolyn Goodman was running the World Series of Poker, if she had it her way, she wouldn't be there. But she would say, let's get this thing going. Let's start it up in late May. Obviously, we're reacting this morning, Daniel, as I'm sure you have been. The world has been the last 24 hours in regards to that interview she did with Anderson Cooper. You go on the front of the Review Journal, you see Anderson Cooper, a picture of him with his hands over his face. Myself and my co-host disagree a little bit. I think she made herself look like a complete buffoon. I think she's a very nice lady, but I don't think she's extremely intelligent. My co-host disagrees, and you guys could maybe get into that a little bit. But
again?
but Daniel, I mean, this really made Vegas look bad. She made herself look terrible. Some people like Jimmy Kimmel, celebrities, are calling for her removal from office. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's funny because my tweet, as I was watching live, it ended up in the Washington Post, because I felt as though, and listen, and I agree with you, she comes off as a very nice lady. Right, that kind of, she's got those old stories of I grew up in Manhattan, right. And it's very cute and folksy, right? However, and the argument I would make, for those people that do want to reopen and all that kind of stuff, fine, you're entitled to your opinion on that, but she didn't deliver it very well, right? So if your co-host here thinks that she's on the right side, that's kind of irrelevant here, because her the way she delivered the information was so shocking. It was one of the worst performances I've ever seen a politician have in a 15-minute interview. She, frankly, in a lot of ways, made Trump look like a stable genius. Who actually was making sense. She really did. It was like I really felt pain for her. I was like, my God, because now you see all these clips going viral, and typically in a 25-minute interview, people might have a 2-minute spot. They're like, check out what she said here. There's 8 of them. Okay, there's every time you look at what people are sharing, it's a different clip of some of the things that she'd said. Right. And it was just really, really just shocking and a little bit ignorant in terms of she doesn't have a plan. She's not doing any testing. She made comments like, it's not my job. And that's kind of exactly what your job is to keep people safe, right? We can't have a system. And listen, I'm all about free market. I believe the business should be able to do, for the most part, what they want. But when it comes to public safety, the job of the mayors and the governors is to keep people safe. If a company is doing something that is putting them at risk, well, they need to step in and do something about that. And if you open up these casinos, here's the thing that wasn't mentioned that a lot of people always like. Do you really think if we opened up Las Vegas tomorrow, there would be hotels full of people? I mean, you might have all these protesters around the country who believe this is all a hoax, in the casinos. But really, the casinos would lose money anyway if they reopen tomorrow.
Sure.
No, and I've been saying that for a long time. I think that, you could say that Nevada opens on May 1st, and you could let the Strip open their casinos, but they would literally be setting money on fire. And that's why I thought that Sisolak made the right decision in shutting everything down, because once the national thought process was that this virus was airborne and you could get it in close confinement, and it was efficient, human to human transmissible, then of course Las Vegas had to shut down. But I do believe, we're looking at almost a 30% unemployment. There was an article in the Sun that said that Las Vegas is going to lose $1 billion. You've got 330,000 that are unemployed across the state of Nevada right now. Las Vegas is hurting, and I think that the businesses outside of the casinos do need to open slowly, assuming that they do practice social distancing. If you want to wear masks, fine. And then also, if you're a high-risk group, and keep in mind, Carolyn Goodman is also a high-risk group. She's 81 years old, and she is a cancer survivor. But if you're a high-risk group, you stay away. Do you agree with that, Daniel?
Well, at this point, you have to put the people at forefront. What I think the proper, it's interesting too, because when we have, issues that are like, pandemic-like, it's interesting how so many Republican voices are speaking to kind of liberal policies like a UBI, or which I wouldn't even call liberal. But imagine a UBI that Andrew Yang was pushing forward at a time like this, where everybody would have $1,000 in their pocket per month to at least have food and at least be able to pay their rent, if you will. In Canada, over the next 4 months, everyone's going to get $2,000 to cover themselves. This is a real spot where you're absolutely right that there's so much pain and suffering among. Like, imagine just being, a couple, a husband and a wife with 2 children who, work in the hospitality industry in Las Vegas, and you have, no income coming in. You have a difficult access to actual just food necessities. You don't know how you're going to pay your rent, and you don't know when you get to reopen. So yes, there's tons of pain here, but this is exactly where, instead of spending, maybe like $600 billion on tanks, can we take some of that money that we don't need, wasting money on tanks that they don't even say that they want, and the generals are like, guys, we have no use for this stuff, and use that to actually feed the people and, regenerate the economy, just to stabilize during this pandemic, because I really believe we are in this for the long haul. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree.
Where you can just say, you can't really social distance in a casino, in such a way that, you're maintaining social distancing. And when she said, Anderson Cooper said to her, he's like, the number's only 150 or so deaths in Nevada. Do you think that has something to do with social distancing? She says, well, we don't know. I'm like, no, we kind of do.
Daniel, you're right.
We kind of do know.
No, you're right. We do know. And, you and I think alike politically, and I know that for a lot of different reasons, but I posted this on Facebook the other day. It's funny how Republicans now, they all want to use the term, we need to put food on the table. Well, you're the same people that have been cutting food stamps for those that have been struggling for decades, and now all of a sudden you want to talk about, the lower class and the middle class families. You want to talk about putting food on the table. You want to talk about those people that are making $10, $12 an hour. Well, where have you been the last 39 years of my life?
Well, yeah, the term I hear is, and this is a talking point. The problem is, like, you don't want to give people free handouts, right? Okay, that's fair.
Right.
But listen, this is a case where people are suffering through no fault of their own.
That's true.
That couple that I was, the imaginary couple that I made up that works hard, they work, shifts, they put food on the table, if you will. They can't go to work right now. They don't have any other resources. So in cases like this, forget about this, negative connotation with a handout. How about helping all of our citizens and those that live here and our hardworking families and things like that? This is a time where government has to go to every length to make sure that people are able to survive through this. And then when we can reopen, continue to put stimulus packages into the hands of people who can use it.
Well, you also, in Las Vegas, you have a lot of employees who are under the table. They're getting paid in cash, and they are not eligible for any of this extra $600 a week unemployment benefit that a lot of people are getting. And then you've got the people that are stocking shelves right now at Vons or Smith's, who are maybe making $12 to $13 an hour, who could actually be making more just going on unemployment. At what point do you think that they are going to realize, wow, I'm putting my health at risk and I'm making less money than I could just not working?
Well, that's one of the the issues where people have with sort of a quote unquote welfare system, right? Where in a lot of cases, people getting a job would be making less than they would had they, gone on unemployment. That's why Andrew Yang's UBI is the answer, because the UBI is unconditional. Everybody gets it. You get it whether you work or not. So now this guy who works the stock shelves, what you said, he could get his not unemployment, but his UBI as well as the additional money he makes. So he could actually, take whatever situation he's in and better himself and, and move up in the world, if you will, with something like that. And I think it's really important for it to be unconditional, which, everyone gets it, because then you're looking at a system that isn't a handout. It is just a new system that, ensures that we're okay when we have pandemics like this. Like, imagine in a couple of years if we have another one like this that's worse. It's very feasible and possible. And we're not really set up in such a way where we take care of our own, those hardworking people that, stock the shelves.
Daniel, I hate to go back to this interview, but I have to ask you one more question about this because, we could name a lot of different things that she said in this interview that were, in my opinion, idiotic. She offered up Las Vegas as a control group. Anderson Cooper asked her, would you sit side by side with these dealers in these casinos? She said, no, she basically danced around the question. She wouldn't answer it. She said she's had plenty of talks with the mayor of L.A. As you know, the mayor of L.A., he's done quite a lot in regards to helping to get testing for his citizens. She answered the question by saying, well, it's not really my job. I mean, I can go on and on with the list. He shows her this Chinese study, and she says, this isn't China, this is Las Vegas. I mean, what really stood out to you the most, Daniel? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask you in this interview, because those are the ones that stood out to me.
Well, yeah, the one that you speak to, the very first one, what she actually said was, she said, we offered ourselves as a control.
Right.
then Anderson chimes in and says, so you're offering the citizens of Las Vegas as a control group in the study. And she goes, no, that's not what I said. Like, she literally said exactly that phrase, right? And then she goes, well, no, we offered, but then they told us that, well, we were not allowed to do that. I'm like, so you did offer. So you essentially said you're willing to take your citizens that put you, in office and saying, use us as guinea pigs. And some people. And then when she went off on this tangent about the sugar pill and the placebo, it was very, very just off the walls. Like
it was a seventh grade biology study conversation. I thought that was very interesting too.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. I mean, there were a lot of moments in that interview. So what do you think, Daniel? I mean, there's some people that are calling for her head, so to speak, like a Jimmy Kimmel, and they're saying that she should resign immediately. What do you say? I mean, you've been living in Las Vegas for a long time. Do you think she should resign?
No question. I mean, she's in there until 2024, as far as I know. But I mean, no question. I don't know if she was drinking. I don't know if it's age, but she just did not come off as somebody that can do this job. And frankly, not only because first of all, she doesn't know she has a job to do. According to her, it's not up to her, right? She doesn't see, and the truth is in the bigger picture, she really doesn't have a lot of power when it comes to reopening. That is on Steve Sisolak, who is holding firm and listening to the science and listening to Dr. Fauci and the rest, and waiting for word there. So, but just as a figurehead, like, it feels to me that she didn't really get this job based on her own merits. It was more a case of, okay, well, she was Oscar's wife, and she's got the backing of the big casino owners, and as long as she does what they say, she's a good figurehead to have there. But this was an embarrassment for. I mean, listen, it didn't go viral by accident, right? All over the world. You're seeing it all over social media, all over the news channels. It was, and you could see Anderson. I mean, I've never seen Anderson Cooper quite so flustered, where he was like so annoyed he couldn't.
Can we go with that for a second, Daniel? Let's go with that. Are you talking
about when he actually took his glasses off and wiped them on his shirt?
JD called him a
face palm. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so you could tell. Now, I think Anderson did a good job of the interview. Maybe at times a little over the top, but JD called him a prick.
I called him a pompous prick.
Do you? I disagree. I disagree with JD. I think it's the responsibility of the media to hold politicians accountable. I thought Anderson did that. What do you say, Daniel?
Well, I will say I'll say that I think Anderson could have done a better job, frankly. And not simply because he was like a pompous prick or whatever you want to call him, just because I think he was so frustrated by the responses he was getting that he's like, it was like in his mind, he's like, are you freaking, well, hold on right now. Are you freaking serious right now? Like, what planet are you on? So he did kind of, because here, the bottom line is, as a journalist, right, you're supposed to ask the tough questions, and he did a lot of that. But at the same time, I think, it's far more professional to kind of keep your cool in spots like that. And he was just clearly annoyed. Even when he made the statement calling what she said ignorant, when he said, wow, that's an ignorant statement. It's like, you don't need the extra comments because, again, it creates sort of a rift between.
That's fair.
It's more fodder for Fox News and, for them to go look at this pompous asshole, and it creates division. Like, this isn't a time with coronavirus where we should be making it political.
Totally agree.
Is, and everything is. It always is going to be. But, that was an opportunity where I just think he lost his cool, and I don't know that I could have kept my cool, too, because it was like, it was just like talking to somebody, and you're like, it's shocking what she was saying.
Yeah, well, he definitely added the theatrics, which does not help in a situation like that. But I thought that Mayor Goodman, she tried not to answer a couple of questions that he just would not let her not answer those questions. And Brian said that he doesn't think she's a very smart woman. I think that she's 81 years old, and you can make the argument, okay, well, if you're 81, then why are you mayor? But I was disappointed with how Anna Scripper would not just get off those questions.
Well, there are simple questions, right, where you ask every mayor, which is like, what are you doing to improve, the ability for people to get testing in your state, in your city? Like, that's a fair question. It wasn't like the questions that he was asking and re-asking were unfair. They were not gotcha questions. They were simple.
Exactly.
Like, the shocking thing to me is this wasn't her first interview. She was on MSNBC the day before. It's like you would think that she would have handlers or people say, listen, next time you're asked these obvious questions, here's what you say.
Exactly.
But it just seemed like she was not prepared whatsoever.
And it's not just that. Yeah. And you're Daniel, you're absolutely right. And it's the job of the media to hold people responsible. But at the same time, it's not like I just met Carolyn Goodman yesterday. I've been in the news business for 20 years. I've known Carolyn Goodman since she was in her late 60s. I've interviewed her, over a decade ago. I'm telling you right now, guys, she hasn't changed. This is Carolyn Goodman, whether she's 81, 71, 65. In that aspect, this is the way she talks to the media. Daniel, I want to talk to you about this. I brought up this point in the first hour. I personally think this is very important. As you know, Governor Sisolak did an interview on CNN yesterday in response to the Carolyn Goodman interview. And in that interview, Sisolak got teary-eyed. He got choked up. He was talking about a veteran that he spoke to basically on his deathbed, and he got emotional. And I said to myself, you got more empathy from Governor Sisolak in a 40-second clip than you've gotten from Donald Trump publicly in 3.5 years. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, here's the issue with Trump, right? His forte, I wouldn't, call his forte being compassion and empathy. When he goes to, regions like when 9/11 happens and, it's a travesty, the first thing that comes to his mind is, that was the tallest building, and now they say that mine is the tallest building. Right, he's very self-focused, so it's very.
I remember he said that. Yep.
I mean, he has, and this is very common, where he goes to places, and I think he wants to be able to, and he tries to, but he doesn't have that empathy gene. So, I mean, I would say that's probably accurate. I've never really seen, and maybe your co-host here could correct us, like any situations where he was genuinely empathetic to people in such a way where you felt like it was. Real.
I can give you one last, but I asked Brian if he thought that Donald Trump had ever cried. He told me there's no chance. So
I didn't say that.
I'm sure you
didn't say that.
I'm sure you would say the same.
I never said
that.
No,
I'm joking, Brian.
Okay.
No, but that being said, last week he did say that the hardest day of his life was when he found out, and this was during the task force press briefing, but was when he found out that there might not be enough ventilators for every single person who needs one to have. And I thought that he showed empathy at that point. That was last week.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've never actually seen it. Personally.
Fair enough.
Maybe I'll look for that clip. Yeah. I don't know that like certain people who have. I'm not a psychiatrist, but many have. Sort of from not intensively, but collectively have said that he suffers from several different, not only narcissistic personality disorder, but sociopathies, he's a nutso, basically, right? And people
I agree.
People who are sociopathic, they don't have the capacity for empathy.
Now, Daniel, we only got a few more minutes left here, but this is another topic that we've been talking about the last few weeks, and that is the protesters. I think a good majority of them are selfish. Those that are not practicing social distancing, which, by the way, is quite a few. They're making it into a Trump campaign rally. Not all of them, but some of them using Confederate flags. I mean, to me, it's utterly disgusting. We all want to go back to work, Daniel, right? We all are in the same boat here in that aspect. We want things to reopen, but it doesn't mean that we should put others' lives at risk. There's something called asymptomatic. a lot of people that are at these protests, I would imagine, don't know if they have the virus or not. They're not practicing social distancing, and I'm calling all those people idiots. Am I wrong in doing so?
Well, you're right. They do kind of look like sort of the same old Tea Party rallies. It's the same group of people, same kind of rhetoric, and they happen to be happening for the most part, I think, in states where there is a Democratic, government. I mean, I don't know. Listen, if you really genuinely believe this stuff, like that it's all a hoax and this is nothing less than the flu and you're suffering, you can have compassion for why these people would, march. They believe in America, freedom. You can't have tyranny.
Yes,
you
America.
can't tell us to stay home. Like, this ain't China. We're free and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the reasons it's a little more difficult to, enforce social distancing laws in a country like the United States. Obviously, with authoritarian states like, China, they tell you to stay home. You stay home. They have drones and police and coverage. They have like the eye in the sky. They see what you're doing. So, part of what makes America great too is the fact that people do have the freedom to do this. And as long as there's no law where they can't, protest, they're taking in their own risk. It's not much different than, people going to church, 50, 60, 100 people at a time and saying, I saw this woman say, I'm fine. I'm covered in Jesus' blood. Like, okay, good for you. There's only so much we can do, right? Like, if people don't want to social distance, unless you plan on having authoritarian, which I know Trump would love. He would love to be an authoritarian where he could tell people what, have complete control over everything. Because he admires every authoritarian that exists, whether it's Putin, whether it's, Kim Jong-un. Like, he loves these relationships and kind of alienates our past allies, which were, in Europe and abroad. But he seems to have an affinity for authoritarianism. And unfortunately, fortunately, he's not able to do that here in the United States yet.
Yes. Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Well, Daniel, I always appreciate it, man. When you come on the show with us, and next time we'll try to get you in the 11 a.m. hour so you can get an extra hour of sleep. All right.
We're good. I wake up right around 10 anyway.
Cool. Daniel, you're the best, man. We love having you on. Love your insight, and we'll catch up with you soon, my man. Have fun with that golf simulation in your home. I'm very jealous of that, by the way.
I will do. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
Appreciate it.
Daniel.
All right. That is Daniel Negreanu, Real Kid Poker, 6-time World Series of Poker champion. Extremely intelligent.
Horribly intelligent.
Yeah, he's very smart.
His IQ is plus 150.
I just said he's very smarter.
Do you think his IQ is higher than Donald Trump's?
I'd say probably double.